And once I perform this, it'll give me a response. That response will be all the content that is there in this web page. And I'm going to store this in response. That's pretty much it. Let's just run this. It'll execute and it'll give me the response. Now, here's the thing. If you print a response, it'll not give you the whole content you're looking for. It's just going to say response has something like 200. That's all it says, nothing else. Here's why. Whenever you send some information over to a server and you get back some response, this particular response that you have received, you need to be able to know what is the, let's say, let me just try to see if I can erase this. You need to know what is the status of this response. Is this response the expected response that I'm expecting? Is this the same expected response that I am requesting for? Or is there some network connectivity at my end or at client's end? Or is there some error at server end? In that case, we need to know if the response is as expected, or is there any issue at my end, or is there any issue at server end? A lot of times, whenever you access some web page, you might have seen 404 page not found errors and so on. These are HTTP or web status codes. So I'm just going to quickly walk through this. So within Mozilla, you can take a look at their documentation for status codes if you would like to later on. But I'm just going to quickly walk through them. So we'll directly get back to our current program. We can see here that the status codes that indicate whether a request has been successful or not are the following. If it's a simple informational response, it will respond with 100 to 199. If it's a successful response, it will respond between 200 to 299. Look at our response. It's 200, which means it's a successful request and we got a response. This is the most commonly used status code for responses. Most of the successful responses will be with 204. I'm sorry, will be with 200. There are some modifications of 200, like 201, 202, 203, 204, and so on. So each one of them have some specific message as well. If the web page is getting redirected, it'll be 300 to 309. But basically, you can assume that from 100 to 399, it is a proper response. We can assume that at least for now. After that, what if it's an error from my end? What if I have some network issues? That is when client error responses come up, 400 to 499. 400 means it's a bad request. 401 means you're supposed to log in and you're supposed to authenticate to access that endpoint, but you are not doing that. 402 means there's a payment required. 403 means forbidden. 404 means you're accessing a URL that doesn't exist. So these are all client-based errors. Then there are server-based errors as well. Client-based errors is 400 to 499. Server-based errors will be 500 to 599. 500 is internal server error, which is the default response. Whenever there is some error in the server, which is why it cannot provide the response that you're expecting, and all these sort of things. There are a lot of different things that you have within it. So if you want to take a look at this, go in depth within this, you can. It's a pretty beautiful thing to learn. And here's why it's important to learn. In our code, when we obtain the response, there could be a lot of things that might happen. You might not have internet connectivity properly to perform requests, or the requests you're performing might not give you a response, and it might just not give you a response at all, and your call might crash. At all those times, you need to make sure that these are handled as exceptions so that your program can still run, your code can still execute regardless of what happens. For this purpose, we need to make sure that we have all these calls to a database, to a network, whatever it might be, kept within an exception handling block so that we never encounter these sort of issues on an everyday basis. It's just something that we need to know. It's something that is a need to know basis when we start working on a coding level, because when we deploy our application, at no point of time do we ever want our application to fail and not give any response back. That's one very important thing that we need to know. That's just something I wanted to point out. All right, moving ahead. Let's move on to the next part of this. So I'm just going to write except exception as E. I can just print an error occurred during the network call, and I'll just specify that exception if such a thing happens. Going back to this, whenever you obtain the response from a request, that response is an object of a class called response, and it will have multiple things within it. Response will have something called status code. It will provide what is the status code of the response. Let's print this first. When you print response.status code, you see the status code is 200. That means it's a proper response. It's a successful response. Whenever you have a successful response, you will get to know and realize that your request is successful, which means you have got the response you're expecting, which is this content, and you can access it. So as a rule of thumb, as a developer, every request call I have ever written in code, for whatever purpose it might be, after getting the response, I don't directly take the content of response and perform some operation with it. Because think about it. What if this website doesn't work tomorrow? What if this website is under maintenance tomorrow, and instead of giving you a 200 response status code, it gives you 500? What if they remove this entire URL and tomorrow you get a 404 error stating that this URL doesn't exist? A lot of things that might occur. For that purpose, I specifically always write in my requests logic, that is, if response dot status code is less than 400, only then move ahead. Or in our particular case, response dot status code is equal to 200, only then perform your operation. Otherwise, you can just print. Currently here I'm using print, but when we write it in web applications, we use return, so that we send that information back to the front end application, which can display that to the end user, just for our reference. Anyway, let's get back to our point. If response status code is 200, here's what we need to do. We will print response.json. Response.json is going to give us the JSON content. Otherwise, I'm going to print, rather, I see we'll just use print. Web page is not accessible and responded with status code. Response.status code. The reason why I'm doing this is, if it's not 200, you will not have JSON content. If it is 500, if it's an internal server error, the server will not send back JSON content to us. It'll just send back a HTML page message saying that we are unable to access this. That's what we need to know. Moving ahead from here. Let's look at the next part of this. Sorry, guys. Please hold on for a few seconds. Yeah. Moving ahead from this. Let's go on and let's see if we can work around and if we can perform this operation, if we can exactly get the response as we expect. Once you run this, you get this entire JSON data. Now remember, because I'm using ice cream, it'll print this entire JSON data in a beautiful way. it'll pretty print it. There's a module called pretty print, but that's something we'll see ahead. But this is an alternative of it as well. You can see this is in a beautiful way where you get to know where a particular um, dictionary or list ends and where the next one begins because it follows indentation accordingly. This is what we get to see. This is the JSON content we have. I'm just going to store this in our case as JSON response equals response.json. And this is the default way or default method of how we generally access a web page to send a request, perform some operation over the web page, and get a response. If you have any query on this still here, please feel free to let me know if there are any queries. I'll just be on mute while I share this code meanwhile. If there are no queries, we will move ahead. So please take a few seconds, just walk through this. You can execute it simultaneously as well. Any queries, feel free to let me know. All right. I believe there are no queries ahead in that case. Right. In that case, we can move ahead, assuming that we are all able to work around this and access this. So that's pretty awesome. Now, moving ahead from here, the next thing we're going to start to look at here is since we have this JSON content, we're just going to do one very small operation with it, just a small operation. This is our JSON response. I'm just going to paste it within JSON formatter website, and I'm just going to beautify it. This is our content we have. What I want to do is get title of every single product. I want to get title of all the products. Or you can also modify the logic like, I want to find out what is the total price of all the products. So the price is 20, quantity is 3, the total is 60, that is 20 times 3. Some discount, and the discounting price is this. Whatever is the discounted price is the final price a person may have to pay. What I want to know is what is the final price the person has to pay for all the cards that they have. For every single card that is available, what is the final price that they have to pay? That's one thing you can try out. So these are just a couple of small questions or small queries you can try out by going through this. Since we have not worked through any complex JSON data structures, we have just seen simple dictionaries. This is rather a complex data structure. It'll be better if we go through it with one example on how to access the inner or nested members of this. So that is what I'll start ahead now. However, if you feel like this is something that is fairly easy for everybody to work through, in that case, we can, of course, skip this and move on to another one, another thing where you can try this out later ahead. So if that is the case, please feel free to let me know. Otherwise, we'll just walk through this very quickly for our reference. All right. So here's what we have. We have 20 cards in this response. As we know, we have 20 different cards. You can see here, the response is a dictionary in which you have cards as a key. This cards as a key is a list. Again, this is one thing that will help us understand how developers decide or why developers choose list in certain cases and why developers choose dictionaries in certain cases when we talk about inner lists or um, inner structures. Now, within this JSON data, we have cards as a key. Remember, there are 20 cards. Since there are 20 cards, I need to access each card separately just by its index. Think about this. Now there are 20 cards. Tomorrow there might be 30. Day after tomorrow there might be 100. I will not know how many cards might be there. It could be any number. So when such number of cards will occur, we'll put it in a list where each dictionary of this list will be one card. And whatever is the length of this list, length of this entire list, we'll get to know how many cards are there. So that's the first thing we'll try to do. We'll get to know if this list has 20 elements or not. If it has 20 elements, that means there are 20 cards. That's the first thing for us to do. So I'm just going to take this key called cards. This is our response JSON. In our JSON response, we'll take a key called cards. This key called cards will give us a list, and I need to find length of that list. That's all we're going to try to do. Let's do that pretty quickly. Again, during the session, if you feel the delivery or the pacing, the way I'm going through, is faster, and you'd like me to slow down my pacing in terms of speech or in terms of the content, so that I go in depth in each content and not move quickly from one content to another or any such thing, please feel free to let me know, because I will again repeat the same thing, that is, given this is an online session, it's quite difficult to understand responses of people without knowing their facial reactions, right? That would happen in a live session. Here, your responses are what helps me understand whether we're at the right track or not. So please feel free to let me know at any time. Anyway, let's get started with this. To get price for each card, first let's get to know if there are 20 cards or not. So I'm just going to print len of JSON response of cards. JSON response is a dictionary. Within this dictionary, I'm accessing the key called cards, and I just want to know what is the length of the value of it, which is a list. That's exactly what we want to know. All right, let's do that. Once we perform this, you get to see length of it is 20. That means we have exactly 20 cards. That's perfect. That's exactly what we required. We have got this. So if I have to go through each card, all I have to do is for card in JSON response of cards. This particular for loop will go through each card. Remember, each card is a dictionary within this list. And this dictionary for each cart will have many products. Since products can be many, multiple, 1, 2, 3, 400, any amount, it'll again be in a list. So if you take a look at this, each cart will have a key called products. That products key will have again a list. That list will again have dictionary. So if I want to access products for each cart, here's what I need to do. When I write for cart in JSON response of carts, I will get this particular dictionary, maybe the first cart. In this first cart, let us not consider this discounted total. I don't want to use this. I want us to do it manually so we understand how to traverse it. This is one entire cart. In the cart, we have something called ID, we have products, and we have some other key value pairs. I want to go to products, and within products, I want to go through each product and I want the discounted price in it and add them. So here's what I'm going to do. For cart in JSON response of carts, for each cart, I want to print what is the ID of the cart and what is the discounted price total of that cart. So let's first get to know the ID of that cart. To get to know ID of the cart, I just have to use cart of ID. Remember, cart is this dictionary. We are going through each of these dictionary of this list. So within this dictionary, I'm going to access a key called ID, which is going to be 1. This is going to be the ID. But that's not the only thing I want to do. I want to access each product. So I want to calculate total price. I'll create total price as a variable whose value will be 0 initially, assuming that all products which have any price, we haven't calculated them. Now I have to go through each one of these products. For this purpose, let's get back to our diagram. Now, this is one cart. Just for our reference, this is one single cart. In this cart, we have a key called products, and this products key is again a list, and it'll have a lot of products. So I need to get to this key, and I need to go through each and every value of this key, each and every dictionary of this value, so that I get the price part of it, which means I have to go for product in. Currently, we are within cart. Within the cart, we need to access products key. So for product in cart of products. So within cart of products, we go through each and every single product. When we go through each and every single product, I need to get its discounted price, whatever it is, and I need to add it to our total price. So I'm just going to write total price plus equals product of discounted. Let's read this properly. Discounted price, it's in camel case. First word has lowercase, and from second word we have uppercase. So we'll make it discounted price as it is. So just remember, for each product in product means each product is this dictionary. Within that dictionary, we'll access a key called discounted price. And once this is done, I'm just going to print for ID, cart of ID, total cost is, I'm so sorry, total cost is total price. That's pretty much it. If we run this, we should be able to get the response that we expect. So we can see this. Just to prove this, let's just try to prove this ahead. For ID1, total cost must be 1941. If we take a look at this, this is ID1. Discounted total is 1941 as expected. So we got the same value. This is how you can walk through and work through complex JSON structures, which is going to help us observe and understand how it is and how it works, just for our reference and our understanding. Right. Now, I hope this makes sense so far. I hope this is clear so far to just understand and work through it. If there are any queries so far till here on this, please feel free to let me know. If there are none, we'll go ahead to the next part right away. So I'll just give you a few seconds to just walk through this. If you want to take that JSON data and just work around and play around with it, feel free to do that. After that, we'll go on to the next part. All right. So I presume so far this is pretty clear in that sense, which means we can move ahead to the next part. All right. So yeah, let's go ahead over to the next part. Now, moving ahead from here, now that we know JSON and requests, it's not just get, you can use post, put, whatever you want. And if you want to experiment on these, um, I believe you have, yeah, here you go. You have some post request as well, which you're able to add a product. But remember, for post request, you will not have a URL because post request does not generally is not used to retrieve some content and show in a web page. Post request is used to send some content. So they have created some post request page as well, and they specify some documentation for you to read and see how to do this or how to access this. Let's see post request here just for reference. Add a product. There you go. All right, there we go. Here we go. Within add product, okay, it's not this one. Yeah, here it is. Within add product, the method is post, as you can see here, and you're going to send a JSON data with a title, and it'll perform some operation and it'll say, this is the ID, this is the title, it's added. So you can perform some operations like this over post request if you want. Now, before we move ahead, if it is something that you might use constantly, you might be required to perform these network activities or network operations to log in and or to update something using web requests, using post and so on. I can show you how to do this for reference. Would you prefer to do that, or if this is fine, just an intro to requests, we can move on to the next part right away and start taking a look at connecting to further things like uh, let's say various other structures and a few inbuilt functions that we are yet to learn within uh, Python. So please let me know if this is fine so far. If so, we'll move ahead to the next one. Or again, as I want to point out, if you'd like us to just walk through one example of a post request or so on, you can let me know. So just a single text in the chat window should be enough for me to know. Shall we go through a post request or skip it? Because post request is slightly different than get request. That's the only purpose I'm asking. Just need you to let me know if you feel like it's something that you might require, you might use constantly. Then we will take a couple of examples, or at least one example, to see that, because post request will use JSON data to send, and we'll see how that works. If not, we'll if you feel like it's something you're able to grasp through and work around and uh, such, we can skip it. So I just need you to let me know with a response, just in the chat window. That should be fine. Of whether you want to go through it or not. That's enough for me to go ahead. All right, absolutely. So a quick example. We'll not spend too much time in that case. Perfect. All right, so let's go ahead in that case. Now, just as a recap, post request is used to send information. And remember,